Tom Segura built a career laughing at himself for being fat and broke.
Here's what I've been doing though. I shop for things that are like way out of my price range. And then after a while I go, oh yeah, I can't afford that. Like today I was looking at yachts.
Then he started telling his own fans he hated them for being poor.
If you're still mad about this, just know that it's your mindset and you're thinking like a loser.
Tom's popularity exploded thanks in part to his many appearances on the Joe Rogan podcast, where fans loved his laid-back, no-holds-barred attitude. He came across as relatable and down-to-earth. Then his career took off, with bigger comedy specials, sold-out tours, and a net worth estimated at $14 million. He didn't seem like the same person anymore. He and his friend Bert Kreischer couldn't stop talking about six-figure birthday gifts, collecting Rolexes, and the perks of being rich. That alone probably wouldn't have bothered most people. The bigger issue was that Tom had also developed a habit of repeatedly going on rants about how much he hated poor people, specifically his own fans that were poor.
Every time we talk about like a watch or a car, I'll get a bunch of messages from losers that try to tell me that I'm making them feel bad about their situation. You're in control of your own situation and your own feelings. So don't put it on me that you feel bad that I have something that, but I'm struggling with rent this month. Figure it the out. You have to be proactive. If you just sit around and you know what? You only have what you have because of fans, so don't talk about us like that. Yeah, but you're still a loser if you're thinking like that.
It only got worse as the years went on, culminating in a complete mental crash out at an airport. Now, he and his wife are divorcing. His latest comedy special landed at a 9% audience score, and a lot of people are looking at him very differently. There's a popular saying from Henry Ford that says, "Money doesn't change men, it merely unmasks them." And there couldn't be a better example of this than today's subject. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we're going to examine how Tom Segura went from being one of the most genuinely liked comedians to one of the most hated. Subscribing is still free, which should make it affordable even for us poors.
I was the same way that you were when I was broke.
Despite often talking about the times when he was broke, Tom actually grew up in a very wealthy family and had a significant financial safety net. His father spent years as an executive and vice president at Merrill Lynch, one of the largest multinational wealth management firms in the world, overseeing trillions of dollars in assets. YouTubers like XLP have dug even deeper into his family history and found that this pattern of wealth stretches back generations, all the way to his great-grandfather.
Until he took over as the vice president and CFA for the Bank of America. His obituary mentions that he was a member of the Quail Valley Golf Club in Vero Beach, where a membership will run you a very modest $85,000 a year, not counting all of the other fees. The obituary also mentions that Tom's grandfather was an FBI agent. With a little research, I was able to find the grandfather in question. Horatio Weston Segura joined the FBI shortly after he retired as an attorney, and was also the son of an insurance magnate from Mississippi. His great-grandfather, Joseph Otto Segura, was a Harvard-educated pediatrician who would marry Mabel Weston, the heiress to the Weston family fortune. He would serve as the vice president of his father-in-law's insurance company, Lamar Life, which would change its name to the L Group in 1999. His great-great-grandfather-in-law, Henry Weston, inherited the H. Weston Lumber Company, the largest lumber company in the entire United States at the time.
That kind of upbringing gave Tom opportunities that most aspiring comedians never have. Now, I just want to say, there's nothing inherently wrong with growing up with wealthy parents or having a financial safety net. On its own, that isn't a criticism. This only becomes a problem if, for example, Tom were to go on several rants about poor people and tell them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, even if he had the luxury of growing up with rich parents. nights. After graduating from college, Tom moved to LA to pursue a career in entertainment. Ironically, his original goal wasn't even stand-up comedy. He wanted to become an actor, doing sketch comedy and shows like Saturday Night Live.
So I get to LA January 2002, and I have no idea how LA operates. I also am not coming to do stand-up. I'm coming to do like comedy acting. That's what I think my path is.
Comedy acting.
You know what I mean? Like acting, but like I'm like, oh, I'll do like
Comedic acting.
Yeah, that's what I think I'll do.
Early on, Tom still worked plenty of ordinary jobs while trying to break into the industry. He interned as a television logger, spending hours transcribing raw footage for reality shows, like Extreme Makeover and My Big Fat Obnoxious Boss. If you don't know what a TV logger does, their job is essentially writing down everything that is said and done during a program. So what the YouTube transcribing button does automatically these days, Tom had to do manually by hand. Like most aspiring comedians, Tom spent years grinding stand-up comedy open mic nights before finding any real success. Back then, Tom also made a conscious effort to avoid looking polished or successful. He believed comedians were supposed to look like regular people, not celebrities. He would perform in worn-out shirts with holes in them, and intentionally leaned into a messy, sloppy appearance because he thought it helped him connect with audiences. His material was built around making fun of himself, his weight, and the awkward moments of everyday life. Whether or not that image perfectly reflected reality didn't really matter. If the jokes landed, audiences accepted it. Larry David is a perfect example of this. He's one of the wealthiest comedians in the world after creating Seinfeld. Yet, on Curb Your Enthusiasm, he still comes across as relatable because he's constantly making fun of himself and turning everyday frustrations into comedy. Audiences don't expect comedians to live exactly like the characters they portray. They just expect them to be funny. During the late 90s and mid 2000s, Tom would meet the two people that went on to define the rest of his life forever: Christina Pazitsky and Joe Rogan. Christina was very similar to Tom. She was an up-and-coming open mic comic trying to make a name for herself in the LA scene, and she was part of his friend group full of comedians. But at the time, she was dating another comic.
They were together for 5 years. I was friends with her. We would do shows like part of the crew, you know? Like
But would you give her fuck eyes for 5 years?
No, we were totally
Just friends.
And I was always thought she was attractive, but you're like, she's taken. And then I got the call, like one of my spies was like, yeah, they broke up.
A few months later, the two began dating and became a sort of comedy duo power couple while still doing separate sets. Fast forward a few years, and Tom became better and better at comedy, eventually winning a contest that let him open for one of Joe Rogan's shows. After getting married in 2008, Tom's friendship had blossomed with Joe Rogan, and he was able to land a spot on episode 8 of his at the time new podcast. The actual episode is audio only because of technical issues, but if you dig through those early Joe Rogan episodes, you'll find Tom popping up all over the place. As the show continued to grow, he became a recurring guest. And yeah, you can definitely tell this is old Joe Rogan. Not only did people enjoy listening to him and Tom go back and forth, but the two of them even slipped into speaking in Ebonics.
The broke thing, and he was like, I don't know why, man, but he's like, everybody had a car wash. So we all he's like, we all had a fucking car wash, man. And that shit did not last. Like, we all spent money on a car wash.
We all bought a car wash. Yeah, man, you ain't got your own car wash.
This brief appearance on episode 8 might not seem like a big deal, but it was probably the moment that changed Tom's life forever. Whatever happened behind the scenes, it clearly convinced him that podcasts were the future for comedians. Just a few months later, he launched one of his own, with Christina. The podcast was called Your Mum's House, and this might make your eyes roll today, but back then, launching a comedic podcast was a genuinely new, novel idea. It's almost impossible to imagine now because it feels like literally everyone has a podcast, especially comedians. But that simply wasn't the case at the time. What made the show stand out even more was the chemistry between Tom and Christina. That might sound like an odd thing to point out because, of course, they're married. They better have chemistry. But there's a huge difference between having relationship chemistry and having entertainment chemistry. It's easy to have fun talking with your spouse or your friends, but from the outside looking in, those conversations can be incredibly boring. Most friendships are built on inside jokes and shared experiences that nobody else understands. Tom and Christina managed to avoid that trap. Whenever they referenced something, they gave enough context for the audience to follow along. More importantly, they made listeners feel like they were part of the joke, instead of watching from the outside. They could bounce off each other naturally while still keeping the audience engaged, and that's a surprisingly rare skill in podcasting. That foundation, combined with Tom's regular appearances on Joe Rogan's podcast, created the perfect storm. His podcast exploded in popularity, and so did his stand-up career. In 2014, he released his first Netflix special that was met with audiences loving it. That's the thing, Tom was a genuinely funny comedian. He probably would have found success on his own, but Rogan's platform launched him into an entirely different level of popularity. The 2010s became what many fans consider the golden era for Tom Segura and the comedians around him. Everyone in Rogan's circle seemed to be thriving, and many of them had successful podcasts of their own. Through Joe Rogan, Tom became close with people like Joey Diaz, Theo Von, Tony Hinchcliffe, and most importantly, Bert Kreischer. Tom had actually met Bert back in the early 2000s, but they reconnected years later and eventually launched another podcast called Two Bears, One Cave. At this point, Tom wasn't just succeeding as a stand-up comedian. He had multiple hit podcasts, a growing media empire, and a string of successful comedy specials. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. Then, one day, everything changed, with a single slip on a basketball court. In late 2020, while attempting to dunk a basketball as a part of a comedy sketch, Tom completely flopped and landed on his arm, breaking it and rupturing his patella tendon in the process. A lot of people point to this moment as the quote beginning of the end, the tipping point that launched Tom's career into the dark timeline. Here's the thing. Tom had always been a big guy. For pretty much his entire career as a comedian and performer, he had been a fairly large chungus, and for the most part, he didn't seem to care. If anything, his size became part of the comedy. The obvious problem was that after years of neglecting his health, he simply wasn't in good enough physical condition to even do relatively minor physical activities without risking serious injury. And that's essentially what the doctors told him. When you actually watch the clip, what he's attempting isn't even that crazy. He barely gets off the ground before the massive weight of his belly causes his body to implode on itself. For most people, something like this probably would have been a relatively minor injury at worst. But because Tom was in such poor physical condition, the fall resulted in multiple serious injuries and a trip to the hospital. This incident gave him a reason to seriously reflect on his health, and afterward, Tom decided he wanted to lose weight and get himself into better shape so he could live a healthier and happier life. So that's exactly what he did. He started going to the gym regularly and presumably got plenty of advice from the people in his Rogan comedy circle who were also involved in MMA, weightlifting, and fitness. He even used his podcast to run his own 5K with Bert. Since then, he has very noticeably trimmed down a ton, apparently losing around 80 pounds.
The most I ever weighed was 265.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And what are you now?
187.
That's insane.
Yeah, so that's like, what, 80 pounds?
Shortly after getting injured, Tom decided to move his family and studio to Austin, Texas, eventually purchasing a $6.5 million mansion. The move to Austin was probably influenced, at least in part, by Joe Rogan being there, and encouraging a lot of his friends to relocate as well. This is where it gets interesting. and relates to why some fans call this slip the turning point of his doom. Actually, instead of calling the basketball court injury the beginning of the end, it might be more accurate to call it the beginning of Tom's personality change. After breaking his body, losing the weight, and moving to Austin, people began noticing a gradual shift in the way Tom acted. It's difficult to pinpoint the exact moment, but sometime around 2022, people began noticing that the overall energy of his podcasts felt different. What had once felt like two friends casually sitting around and talking started to feel much more polished, sanitized, and corporate. Less like you were sitting in on a conversation, and more like you were watching a show designed to advertise something to you, with the viewer stating, "The ads are not only too frequent, they are lazy and annoying. Ad network ads, what gives? Sold out shows and support from fans, not enough? More. His comedy also began moving away from the self-deprecating observations that made him so relatable, and toward bragging about his wealth. Luxury cars, private jets, $25,000 watches, and stories about the lifestyle that comes with being extremely wealthy became increasingly common. Naturally, this made a lot of fans feel like Tom was becoming less relatable. And to be fair, there's nothing inherently wrong with becoming successful and enjoying the money that comes with it. If you work your way to the top of your field and become wealthy, you should absolutely be able to enjoy that lifestyle with your friends. The problem starts when that lifestyle becomes so disconnected from your audience that you stop understanding why normal people can't relate to getting drunk on a private jet. Eventually, the change became noticeable enough that Tom himself started seeing the growing number of fans complaining that the show had become less entertaining. Most reasonable celebrities would probably see that small amount of backlash and take a step back to figure out what they were doing wrong. But Tom isn't like that. Instead, he doubled down. During an episode of Two Bears, Bert Kreischer started talking to Tom about watches, and it seemed to remind Tom of the criticism he had been receiving. What followed was roughly a 6-minute rant where he went after poor people and essentially argued that anyone struggling to afford rent simply needed to quote figure it out, framing poverty as the result of having a quote loser mindset. I already played the clip in the intro, but I'm going to show a shortened version here because it's genuinely mind-boggling to hear.
That, but I'm struggling with rent this month. Figure it the out, okay? Like, don't make my life be a problem for your life.
You know, when Bert Kreischer makes that face, you probably said something you shouldn't have. It's similar to that moment when Joji made that visibly uncomfortable expression in the background of the H3 podcast, after Ethan worded his sentence very poorly.
It's, women are in a nature setting, like, to be conquered.
Now, Tom is no stranger to making jokes about poor people. You can find plenty of examples of that throughout his career.
Are you saying I have too much money to shop here? And she goes, we just can't handle it.
And that alone isn't particularly surprising. He's a comedian. He makes jokes. The problem is that this clearly didn't come across as a joke. As the clip continues, you can visibly see Tom becoming more frustrated and angry as he talks. And there's another, much more obvious problem with telling poor people that they simply need to figure it out. Tom grew up rich. He has spent his entire life with a level of financial security that most people will never experience. So when he tells someone struggling to pay rent that they just need to figure things out, it's not hard to point out that he has never had to figure it out from the same starting point, with the viewer stating, "This is why I stopped listening. He's been such a stuck-up little bitch for the last 2 years that it's ruined the funny. He literally thinks he's the Ubermensch or something because Rogan put him on, and suddenly he's all about that bootstraps life, even though his dad was a hedge fund manager." After the clip aired, people really did not like what Tom had to say, and he received a little amount of backlash, but not as much as you would think. This clip did get people a little miffed. But it wasn't until the following year where things started getting real. In fall of 2023, Tom went to the airport and had to gate check his bag when getting on the plane. Basically, what this means is the overhead compartment where passengers normally put their bags was full, so the airline needed to take Tom's bag and put it in the cargo hold underneath the plane, with the rest of the checked luggage. Most people who have had this happen to them would probably be a little annoyed, but considering you're not being charged or anything, who really cares? Apparently, Tom does. While this was happening, Tom went on a rampage on Twitter. "Dumb c*** from American Airlines made me gate check my bag, so she feels the little power she has in her life. You win this round." When people started replying to him, suggesting that maybe he should relax a little over a random airport employee doing her job, Tom started ranting once again about poor people and how much he hated them. All the poors and the losers have the same response. "Ooh, you were inconvenienced, you should accept it. That's what me and my dumb poor family have done for generations. This is why you're a poor." The lowest level poors get upset as they've been trained to do. When you point out they're happy to do what I'm told servant mentality. You are specks of shit on a washcloth, and washcloths belong in the trash. This is what really did him in, and the backlash went from a relatively small group of people criticizing his behavior to people turning on him in droves. A lot of fans had already been building up frustration over the noticeable changes in his personality, comedy, and lifestyle over the years, and this incident simply poured gasoline on all of it. For many people, it confirmed what they had already been thinking. Tom had become completely disconnected from the audience that had helped make him successful in the first place. No, like genuinely, where is the funny part of the joke? This is just cruel and weird. Months later, Tom finally addressed the whole thing on his podcast and tried making it appear like he wasn't actually that mad.
People don't realize how happy I was during the airport tweets, though. Tantrum. I'm like, tantrum? I was sitting in a first-class seat sipping a Diet Coke, just going like, la la la.
Anyone could see that this wasn't the case. Right after Tom said this, Christina explained that several of Tom's friends were apparently so concerned by what they were seeing on Twitter that they started calling her to make sure he was okay. Even their producer's mum apparently called the studio to ask if everything was alright.
Friends reach out.
You doing okay,
Is
man?
Tom? No, they reach out to me. Like, is Tom doing well? I saw this thing. And I'm like, I don't know. He's fine. He's enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah,
so.
my mom called me one time. Really? Yeah, she was like, "Is everything okay at the studio? Because he seems like angry, you know?"
After the airport crash out, a lot of the damage to Tom's reputation had become solidified. Many fans began leaving in droves or simply stopped watching altogether. And it wasn't necessarily because of that incident alone. For a lot of people, it was the culmination of years feeling like the quality and personality of the show had gradually declined. This shift also appeared to coincide with a significant drop in viewership, with Two Bears One Cave seeing its views decline by almost 80%. By 2025, the sentiment that he had completely sold out was reinforced when Tom attended a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia, which created another wave of criticism and even a boycott. He wasn't the only comedian involved to face backlash, but many people took issue with comedians accepting money from the Saudi government, due to the country's human rights abuses, among many other things. His response to this was essentially a hand wave.
They were really sweet people.
It's just, people have a weirdness of like, you're going over there because it's the Saudi royal family has the money, right?
The Saudi family is the family that funds the entertainment fund.
Right.
And then people were like, they would accuse me of whataboutism for saying that that's the same fund that paid for Ed Sheeran to come and Beyonce to come to do their shows. And like, that's what I'm like, but how? That's just facts. There's a lot of them that were like, a lot of them were super vocal. And I'm like, you can't sell a ticket in Houston. I don't know why you're upset about Riyadh. Like, no one's going to see you anyway.
Right.
It was a bunch of like 50-year-old feature acts that were upset.
As Tom's viewership continued to decline throughout 2026, it didn't come as a complete shock when news broke that he and Christina were getting a divorce. This wasn't that groundbreaking. since there had been speculation for a while that he had not only been checked out of doing comedy, but he had also checked out of his marriage. Clearly, he was embracing the rich boy luxurious lifestyle, and after the divorce news became public, people began revisiting older clips that look much different in hindsight. For example, if you look at his old interview with Andrew Tate, Tom's clearly very on board with parts of his mentality about women, and to some viewers, this raised questions about whether that reflected the type of mindset he started gravitating towards.
You know what? So many women say to me, Andrew, you know what? You're so rich, but you're smart and you're actually very intelligent, and I know you'd get really bored of a robot. And I'm sitting there thinking, bitch, I wish to God you were a robot. You better shut the f up. We talk about star signs? Oh yeah, I'm so glad. Tell me more about Sagittarius rising. You idiots. I'm never gonna look at a beautiful woman who does everything I say and go, you know what? You do too much of what I say. I want to go get some disagreeable.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
There are also older clips where Tom appeared to flirt with high-profile models, and even joked that he wouldn't care too much if Christina died.
I feel such a bond already. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ever since I met you, a few minutes ago, I was like,
So hot.
it is. Hey, what's up? You're here.
Well, yeah, I told you I was gonna be a little bit late, but
I didn't think you were coming
I didn't know
in.
we had a guest.
Oh, actually, she's.
Hi, I'm Christina.
I'm new Christina.
Oh.
Oh my God, you guys have the same name. That's crazy. Well, just because we didn't know if you were gonna be here today.
If Christina died, what would your move be? Like,
do you
what
mean?
would you do?
Enjoy my life? I don't know.
Obviously, these moments were framed as comedy, and Tom constantly exaggerates for the sake of the bit. But after the divorce announcement, the half-truths of these clips are pretty hard to ignore. That being said, Christina has stated that the divorce was mutual and amicable, so it's impossible to know the full story from the outside. Speculating too much about someone's relationship is unfair, when we only see a small fraction of what happens behind closed doors. So it's best to leave it there. For a long time, Tom Segura stood out among many of the comedians in Joe Rogan's orbit, because he seemed like one of the few who genuinely cared about the quality of his comedy, and maintaining a persona of not selling out. But as he got older, it feels like the combination of wealth, fame, and surrounding himself with other extremely rich people changed that. Whether or not it was a slow deterioration over time, or he's always been like that is up for debate, but most people can agree that when he slipped on that fateful basketball court, he didn't just injure his body. The worst thing he broke was his funny bone.